They told us we had 7 days left to stop ourselves, not to save the planet, not to fix the economy, but to stop repeating one stupid cycle that would unmake everything. If you want to know what panic sounds like when it has a deadline, listen close. It sounds like a million alarms that won't stop crying until someone decides to change. My name is Eli Moreno. I'm 31. I make a living editing documentary footage, and I used to think history was an object you could look at from a distance. I learned over 7 days that smelled like ozone and burned coffee that history is a behavior, and behaviors can be interrupted. It started with the message. No one knows exactly how it arrived, not at first. Some people say it rode in on a satellite. Some say it crawled through the dark web like a rumor. My mom says she saw it as a flash on her smart TV while she was flipping channels to avoid the news. I saw it as an email in the morning, subject line, "A warning from your future." The body had one line in plain bureaucratic text, signed only by the last generation. You will repeat the mistakes of 2072 in 7 days. If you do, our timeline collapses. This is your only warning. That's what the first message said. Then the link opened to a video. A woman with gray hair, not old but seasoned, sitting in a room that looked like a bunker and speaking in a voice that had been through too many apologies. The caption read, "We are you. We are asking you to stop." The clip was 6 minutes long, and it did what all good warnings do. It narrowed the future into a single, answerable problem. The last generation explained, in measured tones, that their world had survived a cascade of policy mistakes, ecological indifference, and technological arrogance that repeated in cycles. In 2072, they'd made a set of choices that accelerated collapse. They said the pattern looked eerily familiar to decisions being made now. "You have 7 days," she said. "Stop these specific actions, or our future, your descendants, will have no timeline to occupy. If you cannot or will not act, we will not exist." It could have been a hoax, and in the beginning, most people treated it like one. Memes bloomed, news anchors argued about authenticity, governments convened late-night committees that leaked statements and then recanted them less gracefully. Investors tried to short anything that smelled like moral panic. But when the message repeated, the same video, the same words, appearing in languages that a week earlier didn't have the rights to those phrases, the crowd stopped laughing. The 7-day window did something strange to people. It turned the possible into the immediate. It made millions of small choices look like the levers of destiny. For the first 48 hours, I watched our city breathe like a thing trying to decide whether to sprint or to kneel. My neighbors taped their refrigerators shut. Subway conductors refused to board trains that didn't have a public announcement about the warning.
Polls spiked and crashed. A senator gave an interview that ended in tears and a strangely specific plan to ban a technology stack. He retracted it the next day because of lobbyists, but the damage, or the salvation, depending on your point of view, had already been done. What made the warning surgical was its specificity. The last generation didn't plead for vague goodwill. They named 12 actions. Continue rapid, unregulated geoengineering trials, deregulate a certain class of synthetic fuel patents, approve a trade deal that would strip protections from coastal communities, allow a corporate AI oversight board to self-regulate. Each action had dates and bill numbers, and most terrifyingly, reasons. They explained the cascade like a chess player describing forced moves. If you allow X, then Y becomes profitable. If Y becomes profitable, lawmakers pass Z. If Z becomes law, coastal cities lose the legal standing to resist. If coastal cities lose standing, migration pressures trigger militarized borders, which lead to conflicts that swallow supply chains, and so on.
until the world we know is uninhabitable for the last generation. It was clinical, it was brutal, and it came with a moral test. Could we prevent our own repetition? Day 1 after the message, I called my sister, Mia, who works in municipal planning. I told her about the list. She sounded tired in the way people sound when their job has always been about saying no and never being thanked. They can't even get a unanimous vote through the council for the bike lanes, she said. You expect us to stop global corporate policy in a week? She was being reasonable. I didn't like reasonable. I started to do what I do best. I collected footage. I edited together clips of the last generation and the modern-day hearings and the leaked memos that matched the bills they named. I sent the video to friends who'd once cared about civic things, but now said they were too exhausted. Some watched and passed it on. Others accused me of panic-mongering. The virality was a slow burn. We were still in that awkward phase where a thing could be either a conspiracy or a revolution. On day 3, a small miracle happened. A journalist in Ohio, the kind of person who spends their life digging through court records and eating bad coffee, found the first paper trail. The trade deal the last generation warned about had a clause that matched a clause in a draft leaked to a defense contractor in 2049. The senator who had cried on camera reversed course and published his filings, showing he had been lobbied heavily by a single consortium with offshore accounts. It was forensic. It was raw. The evidence matched the warning like a key in a lock. Then pushback arrived. Denial and violence. The companies named in the last generation's list started a PR campaign. They called the video fake, the claims misinterpreted. Miles of op-eds argued for nuance. Then a rural town burned down under suspicious circumstances. A tech firm's servers were hit by a coordinated outage that knocked several media outlets offline.
It became harder to tell whether these were coincidences or part of the pressure to keep things as they were. Nobody blamed the last generation. Blame is always messy. But people began to fear the cost of resisting. The clock did something else to intimacy. On day 4, my girlfriend, Noelle, changed. She started asking whether we'd done enough. She wondered if the coffee at the cafe we loved should be boycotted because their corporate backers were on the list. She wanted to stop flying, stop buying, stop living the inertia of consumer choices that felt suddenly like votes. Her questions were clean and heavy. I felt my life, which had always been a slow collection of tiny comforts and compromises, tip like a glass you realize is on the very edge of the counter. By day 5, protests had become policy. In cities across the globe, people gathered in front of courthouses and corporate headquarters, chanting the last generation's line, "Change the pattern, save our children." There was also a counter-movement, people who argued that erasing these technologies would cost jobs and stability, and that sacrifice would fall unequally on the poor. The moral calculus of the warning was not just about the future, it was about who would bear the cost of choosing differently. I remember the night of day 6 as a kind of electric dream. My footage had been taken up by a grassroots news channel that stitched together a mosaic of testimony from people who had felt the future's hand on the shoulder. The last generation's woman, her name, we later learned, was Dr. Amina Farrow, appeared in a live panel via a connection that was part feed, part human relay. She looked tired but steady. "We are not asking you to become saints," she said to the camera. "We are asking you to stop a set of policies that we know, with painful clarity, become traps. We are asking you to choose a different path. If you don't, you will have no one left to ask." And then she said something I will not forget, because it was the simplest, cruelest ultimatum. "We will not fight for a timeline that erases itself. If you repeat our mistakes, we will step back. We will not exist to watch you do it again." The first person who spoke the literal truth about what that meant was a young activist in Lagos who live-streamed from a rooftop. "If they step back," she said, voice raw, The things we built won't have the people they were built for. The histories that made us will vanish. We will be ghosts without our own stories. It was more personal than the abstract collapse people feared. It was also a mirror. The last generation would be existentially erased if we refused to learn. On day 7, the deadline, the world felt like a body holding its breath. Governments announced emergency votes, shareholders called meetings, religious leaders made statements that sounded like proclamations and poems at once. I sat with Noelle and Mia and my mother in an apartment full of screens. We watched the streams of votes come in.
Some councils rejected the trade clauses. A country's parliament tabled a geoengineering trial. A corporation agreed, in a move that surprised everyone, to submit to outside oversight. It looked like a dozen doors had been closed at once. We felt a rush of relief, like a city that had just dodged a storm. For a few hours, the world breathed again. People hugged in the streets. Strangers pressed flowers into the hands of guards. The last generation's feeds filled with messages of cautious hope. But relief is a brittle thing. The lesson of those 7 days was that the future is not one dramatic vote. It's 1,000 tiny choices, like the ones we make when no one is looking. A month after the deadline, I found myself back at my editing desk, trying to make a short film out of the footage I'd collected. I wanted it to be a primer, a document people could use to explain how policy loops trap societies into bad outcomes and how small acts of refusal can redirect history. While cutting, I noticed an undercurrent in our success. The choices that had shifted were the ones with clear legal levers. The harder parts, the errands of daily life that cement policy through habit, hadn't changed nearly as much. The corporations had yielded on paper, and the activists had won a narrative, but the underlying incentives, profit structures, consumer addiction, cultural inertia were still there, humming. It was like patching a leak in an aging dam. That realization haunted me more than any viral clip. The last generation had given us a chance. Some of us had taken it. But a chance is not a future. You can toggle a law, you can stop a trial, you can arrest a plan, but you cannot legislate attention or invent patience in a society built to consume moments like calories. 2 years later, I met Dr. Amina Farrow in person in a conference room that smelled faintly of disinfectant and hope. She was smaller than I expected and fiercer in conversation. We talked about the days I had lived through like soldiers compare war stories. She told me the last generation had not intended to threaten. They had been too tired to watch history repeat and too pragmatic to believe in miracles. They had made the video because they had discovered a pattern in the archives, the same corporate structure leveraging the same loopholes, the same political pressure building the same walls. They had sent us a narrow list because they believed the narrow list could be changed. What if you had refused? I asked her, thinking about that ultimatum she'd spoken into my kitchen at midnight. She smiled without humor. We would have become a warning, not a people. There are worse forms of existence than non-existence. Whose story is worth preserving? That's a question you'll be asking for a long time. What I carry with me now, beyond the footage and the edits and the long transcripts, is a habit. I think twice before buying something because I want it and not because I need it. I call my representatives. I try to be the kind of person who remembers what the last generation taught me.
That futures are fragile, that insistence matters, and that some warnings are love letters from people who have already lost everything. When I tell the story now, late-night voiceover, a little gravel in my throat because these memories are heavy, I don't do it to scare, I do it to remind. 7 days changed the world because 7 days was all it took for people to stop pretending that small decisions didn't have consequences. The real test wasn't the deadline. The real test has been the slow, stubborn work of living differently. If the last generation taught us anything, it was this: you don't earn a future by pretending it will come regardless of your actions. You earn it by refusing the easy script. And if you ever get a message from your descendants, tell them you did the work. Tell them you tried. That, they said, is sometimes enough to keep a line of people alive.